not say that name again," the stranger warned, and laughter in the Bellamy Grand Hotel lobby died so suddenly that Elena Brooks heard the old clock behind reception ticking. 3 minutes earlier, the broad-shouldered man in a white shirt had signed the register as Adrian Vale. Now his dark eyes were fixed on the assistant manager who had mocked Elena for asking to inspect his identification, as policy required. Elena was 29, full-figured, exhausted, and too proud to let anyone see how deeply the evening had cut her. She worked double shifts to keep her mother's medical bills current, wore the same black blazer because replacing it could wait, and had learned to smile when wealthy guests looked past her. Tonight, however, her supervisor, Grant Mercer, had looked directly at her and said she made an important guest uncomfortable. Grant had then leaned close enough for only her to hear and whispered that women like her should stay behind the desk, where clients would not have to notice them. Elena had swallowed the humiliation, straightened her name tag, and asked Adrian Vale for a second form of identification. That was when his gaze moved from her face to Grant's hand gripping her elbow, and the room turned cold. The guest did not raise his voice. He merely set down the pen, looked at Grant's fingers, and said, "Remove your hand." Grant laughed nervously, but the man behind Adrian Vale stepped forward in a navy suit, revealing the unmistakable posture of security. Across the marble lobby, 2 more men shifted near the elevators. Elena understood that the stranger was not a businessman avoiding attention. He was someone attention obeyed. Grant released Elena at once. The stranger turned toward her, and for 1 second, the severity left his face. "Did he hurt you?" he asked. No one had asked that in years. Not when her fiancé left after telling her she was fortunate anyone had proposed. Not when co-workers joked about her size. And not when she cried in supply closets before returning with a smile. She shook her head. "I'm fine," she said, though her voice betrayed her. The stranger's eyes narrowed, not at her weakness, but at the lie she used to protect everyone else from inconvenience. Then he reached for the registration card again, his sleeve pulled back, exposing black ink along his forearm, and when he turned toward the chandelier, Elena saw the crescent-shaped scar beneath his left ear. Her breath stopped. She knew that scar. 16 years earlier, during a storm outside a foster home in Queens, a boy had crawled through Elena's bedroom window with blood running down his neck. He had refused to give his name. She had hidden him beneath her bed, pressed a towel against the wound, and distracted the men searching the house by spilling boiling soup across the kitchen floor. Before disappearing, he had given her a saint medal. Elena kept that medal in a box beside her mother's hospital receipts. She had never forgotten the boy's eyes or the promise he made before vanishing into the rain. "When I become strong, no one will ever frighten you again." The man before her had those eyes, but now they belonged to Luca DeMarco, the Mafia Boss whose name appeared in federal hearings, whispered alliances, and stories hotel employees shared. He had checked in under a false name less than an hour before a private charity gala filled the hotel with judges, financiers, and politicians. Elena's pulse hammered as she glanced at his passport. Then, at the scar, Luca noticed. His expression changed by less than an inch, yet the warmth vanished. "You recognize me," he said quietly. Behind him, security closed ranks. Grant backed away, suddenly eager to disappear. Elena knew the safest answer was no. A man like Luca DeMarco did not use another identity unless someone was hunting him, and witnesses rarely survived, powerful secrets unchanged. But she saw a fresh mark crossing the old scar, as though someone had grabbed his throat that night. Before fear silenced her, she whispered the childhood name he had trusted only to her. Luca went still, the lobby doors locked. "Nico," Elena whispered, and the feared man standing across the marble counter looked as though she had fired a bullet through 16 years of armor. Luca DeMarco lifted one hand, and every guard in the lobby stopped moving. "Clear the room," he ordered. His voice remained calm, but guests abandoned their champagne. Hotel employees stepped away from their stations, and even Grant Mercer obeyed until Luca pointed directly at him. "Not you." Within seconds, the glittering lobby stood nearly empty beneath the chandeliers, leaving Elena behind the reception desk, Luca on the other side, and Grant trembling beside a luggage cart. Elena's fingers closed around the edge of the counter. The frightened boy she had once hidden beneath her bed had become a mafia boss powerful enough to empty a five-star hotel with 4 words, yet his eyes still carried the same lonely darkness. "Nobody has called me that since the night you saved me," Luca said. Elena glanced toward the locked doors. "I was 13. I gave you a towel. You lied to 3 armed men and sent them searching the wrong building. I was terrified. You stood between them and the stairs anyway." Grant cleared his throat and tried to recover his authority. "Mr. Vale, whatever misunderstanding is happening here, Miss Brooks violated hotel protocol by questioning a premium guest." Luca slowly turned toward him. "She followed protocol. You violated it when you touched her." Grant's face reddened. "I was guiding an employee. Her name is Elena Brooks. Use it." The correction landed harder than a shout. Luca took out his phone and made one call. He did not threaten anyone. He simply asked the hotel's owner to review the lobby cameras, Grant's personnel record, and the unauthorized sale of private guest information connected to his office computer. Grant's expression collapsed. "That is impossible." Luca placed the phone on speaker. A shaken voice from the hotel board confirmed that security had already found payments routed into Grant's account. Elena stared at her supervisor. For months, Grant had blamed her for leaked reservations and missing records, letting co-workers believe she was careless because she was too exhausted to defend herself. Now Luca had uncovered the truth in less than 5 minutes. "You investigated him before tonight," Elena said. "I investigated everyone who knew I was coming," Luca replied. 2 guards escorted Grant away, without touching him more than necessary. Before the elevator closed, Luca added, "She keeps her job. You do not." Elena should have felt triumphant, but the locked doors, the fake passport, and the hidden guards made victory feel dangerously incomplete. "Why are you here?" she asked. Luca studied her as though deciding how much truth she could survive. "Someone inside this hotel sold my location to a rival. I used the false name to learn who, and now I recognized you in front of witnesses, which means they may think you know more than you do." His answer chilled her. Elena reached beneath the desk for her bag. "Then I need to leave." Luca stepped closer, but stopped before entering her space. "Leaving alone would make you easier to follow. Staying near you could get me hurt." A flicker of pain crossed his face. "You were hurt because of me once already." Before Elena could answer, the lights blinked. A second later, the elevator display went dark. Luca's guards reached beneath their jackets, but Elena noticed something they did not. The fire panel behind reception showed an alarm from the 12th floor, the same floor assigned to Adrian Vale, yet no siren sounded. "That alarm was disabled manually," she said. Luca turned toward the panel. Elena pulled up the maintenance log and saw that someone had opened his suite using a master key 90 seconds earlier. "Your room is not empty." Luca immediately ordered his men away from the elevator and toward the service stairs. Then, Elena saw a hotel bellman pushing a silver luggage cart from the corridor. He wore the correct uniform, but his name tag was attached upside down, and his shoes had no hotel crest. The cart rolled toward Luca with a faint electronic beep. Elena remembered the security training everyone else had treated as a joke. "Move!" she shouted. She grabbed Luca's wrist and pulled him behind the stone reception wall just as his guards overturned the cart. Inside was not luggage but a transmitter wired to release a cloud of choking smoke. The guards sealed the device beneath a fire blanket. Before it could fully activate, Luca looked down at Elena's hand around his wrist. She released him quickly, but he caught sight of the small silver chain beneath her scarf. Hanging from it was the saint medal he had given her in Queens. His controlled expression finally broke. "You kept it." Elena's eyes burned. "It reminded me that frightened people can still survive." Luca reached beneath his shirt and revealed the matching half, worn smooth against his chest. For one suspended moment, the dangerous hotel vanished, and they were two abandoned children keeping a promise neither had forgotten. Then, Elena's desk phone rang. The private line had not been used all evening. Luca answered, listened, and went utterly still. He turned the screen toward her. A photograph had just arrived, showing Elena's mother asleep in her hospital room while an unknown hand held today's newspaper beside her bed. Beneath it were 7 words. Send us the receptionist before midnight, or her mother disappears. No, Luca said, and the word carried more force than the locked doors, the armed guards, or the threat glowing on the phone screen. Elena reached for the receiver. They have my mother. Luca moved it beyond her grasp, not cruelly, but with the controlled precision of a man refusing to let panic make the next decision. They have a photograph, he said. That is not the same as having her. Elena stared at him. You do not know that. I know people who want leverage. If they had taken her, they would show proof. His eyes softened for only a second. And I know you are already thinking about trading yourself. She was. Her mother had spent 20 years cleaning offices at night, so Elena could finish school, never once letting cruel remarks about her daughter's body become truth inside their home. Elena could survive humiliation, unemployment, even fear, but she could not stand behind a safe wall, while the only person who had always chosen her faced danger alone. Midnight is less than 2 hours away, she said. Then we use every minute. Luca ordered one security team to the hospital and another to shut down every exit from the hotel garage. He did not bark instructions wildly. He spoke in short sentences, and trained men moved as if the building itself belonged to him. Elena watched him contact a hospital administrator, reroute cameras, and place guards outside her mother's room without once saying that he was doing it for her. He simply did it. When he ended the call, he turned to Elena. Your mother is still in her room. A nurse is with her. The photograph was taken 27 minutes ago. Relief weakened Elena's knees, but Luca stepped close enough to steady her without grabbing her. His hand hovered at her elbow, waiting for permission. She nodded once. Only then did he touch her. Thank you, she whispered. Do not thank me for protecting someone you love. People usually make me apologize for needing anything. His jaw tightened. Then you have known the wrong people. The desk computer chimed before she could answer. An email had arrived from the hotel's internal security account, containing footage of Elena entering Luca's suite that afternoon and placing something beneath his bed. Elena went cold. I never entered that room. The timestamp showed 4:18 p.m., when she had been covering reception alone. But the woman in the video wore her uniform, carried her bag, and had the same auburn hair pinned into the same careful bun. Luca's guards looked at her differently now. Not openly hostile, but alert. One of them, Marco Bellini, stepped between Elena and the lobby exit. Boss, we need to consider that she knew the childhood name because someone briefed her. Luca's expression became unreadable. Elena felt the old humiliation rising, the familiar certainty that a woman like her would be believed last and blamed first. Search my bag, she said. Marco reached for it, but Luca stopped him. She offered. You still ask permission. Marco hesitated, then did. Elena handed over the bag. Inside were her wallet, the St. Medal's empty box, hospital receipts, and a master key card she had never seen before. Marco held it up. The access number matched the one used to enter Luca's suite. Elena's throat closed. Someone planted that. Or someone wants us to think they did, Marco replied. Luca took the card and examined its edge. This was encoded today. Elena looked toward the security office. Only Grant and the night manager can encode unrestricted keys. Grant is in custody, Marco said. The night manager left sick before sunset. Luca asked for the manager's name. Elena answered, Vanessa Cole. The name changed the room. Luca's eyes hardened. Vanessa was not merely a hotel employee. She was the younger sister of Dominic Cole, a financier who had laundered money for Luca's rival, Salvatore Vieri, before vanishing with $12 million. Elena remembered Vanessa's sudden friendliness that week, the coffee she had brought, the questions she had asked about Elena's mother, and the way she had insisted Elena switch shifts tonight. The truth struck hard. She copied my uniform. She knew my schedule. She knew about the hospital. Luca looked at the false footage again. And she knew I would hesitate if the person accused was you. Elena's heart twisted. Would you? He met her gaze. No. The certainty in his answer silenced everyone. Before Marco could object, Luca pointed to one detail in the video. The woman beneath the copied uniform wore a narrow gold bracelet. Elena never wore bracelets because they caught on the keyboard, but Vanessa wore one every day, engraved with a small letter V. The frame was enhanced, and the initial appeared. The accusation collapsed. Then, every television in the lobby flickered to life at once. Vanessa appeared on the screens from somewhere inside the hotel, dressed in Elena's spare uniform and smiling as though the evening belonged to her. Behind her stood Elena's mother in a wheelchair, frightened but conscious. You protected the wrong room, Luca, Vanessa said. The nurse was ours. Bring Elena to the ballroom by midnight, or the woman who saved you once will watch her mother pay the price. The screens went black. Luca turned toward Elena, but she was no longer trembling. She lifted her chin, pain giving way to resolve. We are not waiting until midnight, she said. I know every service corridor in this hotel. Luca removed his jacket and placed it around her shoulders, covering her as gently as if the entire dangerous world had narrowed to one wounded woman refusing to break. Then you lead, he said, and I make sure no one touches you again. Elena led Luca through a narrow service corridor behind the ballroom kitchens, where fluorescent lights buzzed above steel carts and the distant gala music sounded unnaturally cheerful. His jacket rested over her shoulders, too large and warm, carrying the faint scent of cedar and rain. Luca stayed half a step behind her, close enough to shield her but careful not to crowd her. Marco and 2 guards followed 20 feet back. There is an old freight elevator beyond the laundry room, Elena whispered. It opens behind the ballroom stage. Luca studied every doorway. How many employees know that route? Most know it exists. Only management knows the elevator still works. A metallic click echoed behind them. Luca moved instantly, placing himself between Elena and the sound. It was only a loose cart rolling from an alcove, but his hand remained near her waist until the danger passed. Elena looked up at him. You still do that. Do what? Stand in front of people before you know what frightened them. His expression tightened. The last time I failed, I was 12. Before she could ask who he had failed, a voice came through the overhead intercom. Touching, Vanessa said. The lost boy and the forgotten girl, reunited beneath chandeliers. Luca glanced toward the nearest camera. You wanted me here. I am here. Not yet. Bring Elena to the ballroom. Release her mother first. Vanessa laughed softly. You still believe this is about leverage? The intercom went silent. Elena's stomach twisted. She wants something else. Luca nodded. And she expects you to lead me to it. They reached the freight elevator, but the control panel rejected Elena's code. Someone had changed it within the hour. She crouched beside the maintenance box, recalling the emergency sequence used during inspections. Luca lowered himself beside her rather than ordering her aside. Their shoulders nearly touched in the cold light. You trust me with this? She asked. I trusted you when I had nothing but a bleeding neck and a stolen coat. You did not have much choice. I had a choice. I chose the girl who looked scared and still opened the window. Elena entered the override code. The elevator doors shuddered open. Inside, taped above the buttons, was a photograph of Elena at 13, standing beside her mother outside the Queen's foster home. On the back, Someone had written 3 words. Ask her mother. Luca's face lost color. Where did she get this? Elena studied the photograph. Her mother had kept only 1 copy, hidden inside an old blue Bible. She had access to my mother's apartment before tonight. Marco stepped closer. Boss, this is a trap. We should pull back. Elena noticed Luca's reaction. He did not look at Marco, but his shoulders stiffened. You said the hospital nurse was theirs, Elena said. How did you know there was only 1? Marco's eyes shifted toward her. The security team reported it. No, Luca said quietly. They reported 2 nurses and 1 orderly. Silence filled the corridor. Marco reached beneath his jacket. Luca moved faster, knocking his wrist aside and pinning him against the elevator wall without striking him again. 1 guard removed Marco's weapon, while the other found a hotel master key and a small transmitter in his pocket. Elena stared at the man who had questioned her loyalty minutes earlier. Marco's expression hardened. Vieri promised your empire would fall before dawn. I chose the side that survives. Luca's voice became colder than Elena had yet heard. You sold my location. I sold a dying kingdom. Marco looked at Elena, and she was always the key. Luca tightened his grip. Explain. Marco smiled through his fear. Her mother kept the ledger. Elena felt the floor tilt beneath her. Marco revealed that 16 years ago, her mother had worked nights at the foster home and secretly copied financial records, proving Salvatore Vieri had paid corrupt officials to traffic vulnerable children through false adoptions. Luca had discovered part of the operation as a boy. The men chasing him were not random criminals. They were Vieri's enforcers sent to silence him. Elena's mother had hidden the original ledger before helping Luca escape, then moved Elena away and changed jobs to protect them both. The scar, Elena whispered. They gave it to you because you saw their faces. Luca released Marco into his guard's custody, but the revelation left something raw behind his eyes. Your mother knew who I was all these years. Maybe she stayed silent to keep me safe. Or because the ledger could destroy every alliance Vieri built. The elevator suddenly descended without anyone pressing a button. The control panel flashed red, locking them inside. Vanessa's voice returned through the speaker. Now you understand. Bring me the ledger, Elena, or your mother never leaves this hotel. Elena stared at the photograph again and remembered the blue Bible her mother had insisted she carry to work that morning, saying the hospital room felt too crowded. It was still locked inside Elena's reception drawer. She looked at Luca, realizing Vanessa had never wanted Elena herself. She wanted the one object Elena had unknowingly guarded all night. Before Elena could speak, Luca touched the edge of the old photograph and said, "There is something else you deserve to know. The men who cut me were not working only for Vieri." The elevator stopped beneath the ballroom. The doors opened onto darkness, and Luca finished in a voice barely above a whisper. My own father paid them to make sure I never came home. The darkness beyond the freight elevator lasted only 3 seconds before the ballroom lights blazed on, revealing 200 gala guests frozen beneath crystal chandeliers. Judges, financiers, politicians, and crime families stood around white-clothed tables while Vanessa Cole waited on the stage beside Elena's mother, whose wheelchair had been positioned beneath a gold charity banner. Salvatore Vieri stood behind them in a charcoal suit, smiling with the patience of a man who believed every exit belonged to him. Armed men occupied the balconies, disguised as hotel security. Luca stepped out first, placing his body between Elena and every weapon in the room. Your father wanted you dead because you saw what his empire was built on, Vieri called. He taught me that family is only another word for leverage. Luca showed no reaction, but Elena saw his hand close once at his side. The revelation had cut deeper than any bullet could. Release Mrs. Brooks, Luca said. Give me the ledger, Vanessa replied. Then perhaps I will. Elena looked at her mother, who shook her head urgently. Do not give them anything, baby. Her voice trembled. but her gaze remained strong. Vieri lifted one finger, and a guard pressed a hand against the wheelchair handles. Luca moved forward, but Elena caught his wrist. "They expect you to attack," she whispered. "That is why they put everyone here." She scanned the ballroom and noticed the red emergency indicators above the exits. Vanessa had locked the doors and disabled the sprinklers, turning wealthy guests into witnesses and shields. Midnight was 11 minutes away. On the largest screen behind the stage, a countdown appeared. Vanessa smiled. At 12, every news outlet in New York receives footage showing Luca DeMarco invading a charity gala with armed men. His allies will abandon him before breakfast, and the authorities will finish what his father started. Luca looked at the crowded room, then at Elena. "Where is the Bible?" "In my reception drawer." "Then they do not have the ledger." Elena understood his plan before he spoke. He intended to surrender himself, drawing every guard away long enough for her to escape through the service corridor. "No," she said. Luca lowered his voice, the dangerous edge disappearing only for her. "Your mother leaves with you. And what happens to you? That is not your burden." Elena stepped in front of him, refusing to let his size or power push her aside. "You do not get to decide that I am worth saving while treating your own life as disposable." The words struck him silent. For 16 years, Luca had survived by believing protection meant standing alone. Elena had survived by believing love always required sacrifice. Neither belief had brought them peace. "Trust me," she said. Then she walked into the ballroom before he could stop her. Whispers spread through the guests as the curvy receptionist in Luca's jacket crossed the polished floor alone. Vanessa laughed. "The forgotten girl finally wants attention." Elena kept moving. "No, I want the truth seen." She raised the hotel tablet she had taken from the elevator maintenance cabinet. While Vanessa had spoken through the internal system, Elena had used her employee access to restore one function: the ballroom screens. She entered the emergency code and replaced the countdown with security footage from the 12th floor. The video showed Vanessa planting the master key in Elena's bag, Marco disabling Luca's alarm, and Vieri's men wheeling Elena's mother through the service entrance. Gasps swept through the room. Several judges reached for their phones. Politicians backed away from Vieri. Vanessa's smile vanished. "Turn it off." "I cannot," Elena said. "It is uploading to the hotel's external server." That was partly a bluff, but Luca recognized it and acted without hesitation. "Every file has already been copied," he announced. "Anyone who leaves with Vieri becomes part of the evidence." The power in his voice shifted the room. Men who had feared Vieri moments earlier began stepping away from him. One family representative removed his alliance pin and placed it on a table. Another ordered his guards to lower their weapons. Luca walked to Elena's side, choosing her publicly over every alliance his enemies had threatened to destroy. "She stands under my protection," he said, "not because she is weak, but because she had the courage to expose what powerful men buried." Vieri's face twisted. "You would sacrifice your empire for a hotel clerk." Luca took Elena's hand in front of everyone. "An empire that requires me to abandon her deserves to fall." Elena's mother began to cry, but this time with pride. Vanessa seized the wheelchair and pulled a small blade from her sleeve. Elena did not retreat. She remembered the manual brake cable running beneath every hotel chair used for medical guests. She kicked the release lever, causing the wheelchair to roll sharply sideways. Her mother moved out of Vanessa's reach as Luca crossed the stage and disarmed Vanessa without striking her. For one breath, victory seemed complete. Then Vieri drew a concealed pistol from behind the charity podium and aimed at Elena. Luca saw it first. He stepped between them as the shot cracked through the ballroom. The bullet struck beneath his shoulder, spinning him toward Elena. She caught him as he fell to one knee, blood spreading across his white shirt beside the childhood scar she had recognized. Guards overwhelmed Vieri, but Luca's face had already gone pale. Elena pressed both hands against the wound. "Stay with me, Nico." His eyes found hers through the chaos. "I told you," he whispered, struggling to breathe. "No one would frighten you again." Then the ballroom doors burst open, and Elena saw the man leading the arriving police. He wore Luca's family ring, and his face was identical to the father Luca had been told was dead. The man wearing the DeMarco ring raised both hands as officers flooded the ballroom. "I am Matteo DeMarco," he said. "Luca's uncle, not his father." Luca's fading eyes opened at the sound of the name. Matteo was the identical twin of Antonio DeMarco, the man Luca had believed died years ago. He had spent 16 years in federal protection, gathering evidence against the family members who had built their power through Vieri's crimes. Tonight, Elena's restored security feed had finally given him enough proof to move. "The ambulance is 30 seconds away," Matteo told her, kneeling beside Luca without touching him. "Keep pressure on the wound." Elena held Luca upright against her, his blood warming her hands as she pressed his folded jacket beneath his shoulder. "You are not leaving me after finding me again," she whispered. Luca tried to smile. That sounded like an order. "It is." His fingers closed weakly around hers. Paramedics rushed through the ballroom doors and lifted him onto a stretcher. Elena moved with them until an officer blocked her path. "Family only." Luca's eyes opened at once. Even injured, his voice silenced the people around him. "She is my family." The officer stepped aside. Elena rode in the ambulance, holding Luca's hand while city lights flashed across his pale face. Before the hospital doors closed between them, he pulled the saint medal from beneath his shirt and placed his half in her palm. "Keep both until I wake up." Elena spent the next 3 hours beside her mother in a private waiting room guarded by men who now addressed her by name. At 3:17 a.m., the surgeon emerged and said the bullet had missed Luca's heart and major arteries. He would recover. Elena's mother began to cry. Elena did not realize she was crying too, until Matteo quietly handed her a handkerchief. He explained that Antonio had ordered Luca's death after the boy discovered the trafficking records. Matteo had tried to reach Luca that night, but Vieri's men attacked first. Elena and her mother had saved him before Matteo could. The blue Bible contained the original ledger, hidden inside a sealed section of the cover. Elena's mother had kept it because every official she trusted had been connected to Vieri. With the ledger, the hotel footage, Marco's transmitter, and Vanessa's confession, Vieri's organization collapsed before sunrise. Grant was charged for selling guest information. Marco agreed to testify, and Vanessa faced prosecution for the kidnapping and conspiracy. No one could bury the truth again. When Luca woke, Elena was asleep in a chair beside his bed, still wearing his jacket over her hotel uniform. He watched her for several seconds before touching the back of her hand. She opened her eyes and immediately stood. "Do not ever step in front of another bullet for me. I cannot promise that. Then promise to let me stand beside you." Luca's guarded expression softened. "That I can promise." He noticed the 2 halves of the saint medal joined around her neck. "You kept them together." Elena placed his half in his palm. "Only until you woke up." Luca closed her fingers around it again. "Then keep them, until I learn how to live for something, instead of only dying to protect it." Elena leaned closer, but he did not pull her down or claim the moment. He waited. For a man accustomed to controlling rooms, that restraint told her more than any declaration could. She touched his face and kissed him gently. 6 weeks later, Luca returned to the Bellamy Grand for the first time since the gala. The lobby had been restored, Grant's office had been emptied, and Elena had been promoted to Director of Guest Security after the hotel board recognized that her courage and knowledge had saved hundreds of people. She accepted the position on her own terms. Luca never asked her to abandon her work, change her clothes, or become smaller to fit beside him. He simply arrived each evening when her shift ended, remembered how she took her coffee, and stood close enough to protect her without taking away her choices. At the hotel's reopening ceremony, Several guests who had once ignored Elena watched Luca DeMarco cross the marble floor toward her. She wore a deep green dress that embraced her curves, not to prove anything to the room, but because she finally felt no need to hide. Luca stopped before her beneath the same chandelier where she had first recognized his scar. "Everyone spent years telling me strength meant needing no one," he said. "You taught me that real strength is trusting someone enough to stay." He took her hand, then knelt. The lobby fell silent. "Elena Brooks, you never needed to shrink to be loved. I only need to know whether you will let me build a life worthy of you." She looked at her mother, smiling beside Matteo, then at the man who had once crawled through her window, frightened and bleeding. "Yes," she said. Luca rose and kissed her as warm morning light poured through the glass doors. The boy with the scar had finally come home, and the woman the world overlooked was no longer waiting to be chosen. She had chosen herself, and then she chose the man who saw her clearly. Their story began with a false name, but it ended with the truth. Love did not rescue Elena by changing who she was. It gave both of them the courage to become who they had always been. Would you have recognized Luca after 16 years? And would you have trusted him with your heart? Subscribe to the channel for more emotional Mafia Boss stories where danger meets devotion, hidden wounds find healing, and the woman everyone underestimated finally gets the love she deserves.